Hey everyone. So if you're a Ukrainian living in Slovakia, you've probably spent the last couple of years just focusing on safety, right? On the here and now. But things are changing. The conversation is starting to shift from just an emergency situation to, actual long-term planning. So what does your future here actually look like after 2025? Let's get into it.
Really, the big question on everyone's mind is this. What are you going to do to stay in Slovakia legally once we get past 2025? The answer, well, it's a little more complicated than you might think, and some really crucial deadlines are coming up way faster than you realize. That's exactly what we're going to break down right now. All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the two main paths you can take, temporary refuge and temporary residence. Then we'll dive into a super critical deadline for all you business owners. After that, we'll compare everything to help you figure out what's best for you. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a clear action plan that you can start on today.
So let's get into it. The best way to think about your future here is like a fork in the road. You've got two very different legal paths you can go down, and each one has its own rules, its own benefits, and totally different long-term results. The choice you make pretty soon is going to have a huge impact on your life here for years to come.
First things first, let's get the language right, because it's super important. On one side, you have temporary refuge, or Dočasné útočisko. This is the status that most of you have right now. Think of it as a safety net. But on the other side, there's temporary residence, or Prechodný pobyt. This is a formal permit, a much more deliberate step toward actually building a permanent life here. They're absolutely not the same thing. Okay, let's kick things off with path one, the one most of you are on right now, temporary refuge. And there's good news. This safety net has been extended, which gives you a bit more breathing room. But it is so important to understand what it gives you, and maybe more importantly, what it doesn't.
And here is the single biggest piece of news. The government has officially extended temporary refuge all the way to March 4th, 2026. What that means is your legal right to be here is safe for now, even if your current document says it's already expired.
And you know what the best part is? They've made it incredibly simple to update. You don't have to go to the foreign police or wait in any lines. You just go to the official website, punch in your details, and download a new PDF. That's it. That new document is all you need for your boss, your landlord, or the doctor.
So why stick with temporary refuge? Well, the huge advantage is flexibility. It gives you instant access to the job market. You don't need a work permit, which makes it super easy for companies to hire you. You can also start your own business, a živnost, and you get access to essential healthcare. It's really designed to get you on your feet quickly.
But, and this is a really big but, there's a major catch when it comes to long-term plans. Temporary refuge is an amazing safety net, but it was just never built for permanent settlement. And that leads us right into our second option.
And that catch leads us straight to path two, temporary residence. This is the strategic option. This is for anyone who really sees themselves building a long-term future in Slovakia. We're not just talking about staying anymore. We're talking about building a permanent home.
Now, there are a couple of main ways to get temporary residence, but for most people, it's going to be for a job or for a business. The job route is the most common. Your employer sponsors you, pretty straightforward. The business route is for all you entrepreneurs, but listen up. The business route, it's facing massive changes really soon.
Okay, this is probably the most important slide in this whole section. Pay attention to this. If you want to get permanent residence in Slovakia, you need 5 straight years of legal residency. Temporary residence is the only status that starts that 5-year clock. That is the single biggest difference between these two paths. All right, if you're an entrepreneur or even just thinking about starting a business, you need to listen very carefully right now. There is a huge legislative change coming, and you absolutely need to act before it's too late.
Here's how things are about to change, and it is a massive shift. Right now, today, you can apply for your business residence permit from right here inside Slovakia at the foreign police. But after July 1st, 2025, that all changes. You'll have to physically leave the country and apply from a Slovak consulate somewhere else.
Let me just spell this out so there's no confusion. If you apply before the deadline, you're dealing with the local foreign police. It's a standard process. But if you wait until after the deadline, not only do you have to travel, but your application gets thrown into a pool that's subject to a new and very strict national quota.
And that new quota? It's just 700. And let me be clear, that is not 700 for each consulate. That is 700 for the entire world for the whole year across all Slovak consulates combined. The odds of getting a permit after this deadline, well, they're going to drop like a rock.
Okay, so we've got the two paths laid out. We have the easy, flexible safety net of temporary refuge and the more serious long-term path of temporary residence with that scary deadline. Now let's put them side by side to help you figure this out.
I really want to hammer this point home because it's everything. And this isn't just my take on it. This is a direct quote from the actual law. The years you spend on temporary refuge are basically invisible when it comes to getting permanent residency. So if you stay on refuge for, say, 3 years and then switch to residence, that 5-year clock, it resets to 0 the day you switch. All right, this table really brings it all together. Let's walk through it. First, what's your goal? If it's just immediate safety and flexibility, refuge is perfect. If it's long-term settlement, you have to choose residence. What about the path to permanent? Well, with refuge, the time doesn't count. With residence, it starts that 5-year clock. The effort? Refuge is a super simple online renewal. Residence? Well, it's a lot of documents, fees, and trips to the police. And finally, healthcare. You get necessary care on refuge, but full public insurance with residence.
Whew. Okay, that was a ton of information, I know. But just knowing this stuff isn't enough, right? We need to turn it into action. So let's boil all of this down to a simple checklist of things you should be doing right now.
So here's your checklist. A few simple things you should do like today. First, check your passport. No permit can be valid longer than your passport is. Second, if you're staying on refuge, go online and get that 2026 confirmation right now. Make sure your rental contract is all good and notarized. And seriously, I'm going to say it one more time because it is that important. If you have a business, start getting ready to apply before that July 2025 deadline. And lastly, if you have any chronic health issues, talk to your doctor about what a long-term plan looks like.
So in the end, it all comes down to you and what you want for your future, the safety and flexibility of refuge or the commitment and long-term path of residence. One path is easier right now, but the other one is what builds for tomorrow. The clock is definitely ticking. So, which path are you going to take?